I don't really think about food hardly at all anymore. Like I used to be so food obsessed because making my plans and stuff, which wasn't a bad thing, the planning, but now I think I didn't realize how obsessed I was with it. You know what I mean? It's like I would make a plan for the day, which was perfectly fine. I would do lunch or breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks, and I would put it all on my plans. And what would happen is if it was on my plan, I felt like, oh, well, I can eat it. But it wasn't meant to be that way. It was meant to be, put this on what you want to eat for the day, fine. But then you're only eating when you're hungry or and only eating till you're satisfied, which is what I do now. So that is one of the big things that really helped me. But now that I'm not thinking about food at all anymore, really, and not really obsessing about it, it's been actually easier. But I think I needed to have that foundation of that program in order to get to where I am in this program for that part of it. So it was amazing to me that I think it was after like the third week, we had a phone call and I said to you, I don't even think about food anymore. And for my whole life, obviously, it's been like food obsessive. So to get to the point where I'm at now with that is amazing. And so I feel like that is why going through and getting through all of the things that have been coming up for me that's not food related has really made me realize how much digging deep into yourself and getting through the things that you may not even realize you have held on to in your life is like huge.
Food and weight obsession can be exhausting. Losing weight, gaining weight, dieting, feeling like a failure because you missed a workout, binged, overate, or gained all the weight back. The cycle is endless and it can be maddening. But I'm here to say you can stop the mental madness. You can take back control of your food behaviors, but you have to face your fears, you have to ask for help, and make a change. I am Leslie M. Thornton, permanent weight loss coach from hpwl.co. This is Hypnosis for Permanent Weight Loss, and I know you can make this happen. On this podcast, you will hear how to stop the mental madness, love your body, trust your food decisions so you can create a life of happiness, freedom, and inner peace. Hello, everyone. Leslie M. Thornton, Hypnosis for Permanent Weight Loss. Today we have Stacy Shako with us. She is a recent graduate of the Hypnosis for Permanent Weight Loss program and is a delight. I just don't even know what other way to say it. But this lady is full of life and joy and gratitude and sharing her transformations with others so they can get the same thing she has. Like just absolutely does the work, tremendous, like just amazing. So get ready to be in the presence of someone who is walking her walk and just like, I don't know, just a delight. So thanks for being here, Stacy.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And thanks for being willing to share your story. I know it'll make a big difference for a lot of people. As I always say, it's always way more powerful to come out of someone else's mouth besides my own. And whatever's going on here. So yeah, let's dive into it. If you wouldn't mind sharing maybe where you were prior to starting this program. I know you were in a different program prior to this one. Yeah, would love to hear.
Yeah, so I actually was in a weight loss program for 3 years before I came on to this program. And a fabulous program, loved it, but it had run its course for me and I knew it. And so I bowed out of it and just decided that I kind of prayed about it and said, lead me to wherever I'm supposed to go next, more or less. And I knew God would. And how I, ended up going from there to here. I had it was a couple months between the two. And me and a friend of mine who's one of my weight loss accountability partners, Jess, we decided together because we were both kind of in the same spot where losing and gaining the same 10 pounds and it just wasn't going anywhere. And it was just frustrating. And so Jess and I had talked to each other and it said, listen, let's take a day or two, research some stuff each. We'll come back together and we'll see what we find and check things out and see what happens. Well, my friend actually found you. I'm not even sure how she found you, but she did. And then she said, hey, I found this, check it out and let me know what you think. So we both got on to the Facebook page, the public one. And that's how it kind of started. And then I had one of your coaches obviously reached out to me about having a call, and that's how it kind of went. And then, it just resonated with me. Like, it was like, this was just meant to be where I was next, with all the stuff that I had learned in the 3 years, which was very, very heavily weight loss motivated, obviously, because it's a weight loss program. But, and so it's like learning the basics of things, I had to make a food plan every day. It didn't have to stick to it, but you had to, you make one. And I feel like, after leaving there and still doing it and then finding this and not making a plan now, it was almost liberating me from the food, because I would get so hung up on like the plan I had, instead of, just really being able to say, hey, I'm not hungry yet, but when I am, I'll eat. And what I eat, you know what I mean? So it was just different, but in a good way.
Yeah. So something, I appreciate you sharing all of that. And I love how, I can't tell you how many times that I've heard people say like their faith, or their body knew, or they were waiting or asking for, the next part of their path they were supposed to go on. And then they land here. And I just love that for myself, it's always been like, I just know with my body, it's like, this is exactly where I need to be right now. And I go and I do it. So I just love your process in that. And something that I've been talking about or thinking about a lot lately is how, the other things that we've done in the past, I talk to people all the time, obviously, who have done everything under the sun. They've done all the diets and they've written all their food down and they've weighed and all the things. And those things, had a time and a space that was amazing for the path that you were on at the time, right? Myself included. And it's like, as we're growing and shifting and learning and changing, because we're evolving as human beings all the time, you get to a point where the writing the food down, the having the plan, the thinking about the food all the time, the worrying about the weight all the time, the stressing about the parties coming up, like, you just get fed up with it, pun intended, of like, I don't want to do this anymore. And what I always encourage people, because they'll be like, oh, it's another weight loss program, that you have here or whatever, which we can get into that, because I know you have things you want to say about that. And they're kind of jaded about it. And I understand why. But like, what I bring to the forefront to them is being like, consider the fact that the reason why you're jaded right now about weight loss programs is because the mindset that you've had up to this point about yourself is in a fail pass mindset. It's very black and white of like, well, I did that food plan or whatever and lost X amount of weight and whatever. And when I was at that low weight, I was a success. Like, I got a gold star and now everything's okay. And then as soon as you stop doing that and you start putting weight back on, you have put a huge blanket on yourself in the category of, I'm a failure, the diet failed, and therefore I have to start again. But what's not being looked at is how much you've learned and grown as a human being as the result of you following every plan that you did. Right. So when people come to me, it's like, oh, Weight Watchers isn't working for me anymore. The things that I used to do in the past aren't working for me anymore. It's like, yay, good. It means that you've actually evolved into maybe now being ready for this kind of work, where it's no longer like following somebody else's plan, being so black and white, having to weigh and measure and write everything down anymore, but like actually trusting you. Like, you're the CEO of your own life and health now. You want to learn how to actually love yourself and trust yourself and your body and your food decisions again, or maybe for the first time, right? And like have it ripple out into all areas of your life where your relationships are better, your health is better, right? Your overall life satisfaction is better, you're present with your friends and family. So I just want to like point that out and ask you, Stacey, like, do you see that as your journey as well, as like each point was an evolution, and then you get to a point where it's just like, instead of like that failed me, that failed me, that failed me, that failed me, so why wouldn't your program fail me again too, Leslie? It's like, consider the fact that none of them failed you. Like, you're becoming that person, and now you're ready for this one, and maybe there'll be one after this. But it's like, if you're not creating a space for yourself to have a growth mindset where you can actually look. And I know, Stacey, you've been amazing at like journaling and celebrating yourself and like really rewriting the script, which I'd love for you to share about as well. Then your experience of everything is going to be a bust in life.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I never looked at it as these plans failed me. I never really did. I've always felt like I took something out of it. Because I always feel like no matter what, even in relationships or whatever you're going through in your life, whether it be a weight loss program or a relationship or whatever, I always feel like there's always a reason you were put there. I always feel like, there's a lesson that you're learning. So you're either having a takeaway from it, regardless of how it goes. And it's always, I always say I'm failing forward. That's one of my favorite thing. I'm failing forward. So yeah, did it work? No. Or maybe it didn't work the way I wanted it to, but it's going to lead me to the next thing, which is going to then lead me to the next thing, which is, you know what I mean?
Yes.
So yeah, so failing forward's always been like a big thing. I got that out of the last weight loss thing that I was in, and that really stuck with me, because I thought, yeah, that's what I do.
Right. And
Forward,
so often, right, the reason why we obsess with food, body, and weight is because we have like a low self-worth, or we don't see ourselves in a positive way, or we're really hard on ourselves, or every time you make a mistake, right? Like you have a piece of cake when you're on your diet, then it's like World War III happens in your body. Right. And it's like, that's the real issue. Like, we need to work on that, because then you can't make a mistake in anything that you do in your life. And you get to create the value out of whatever it is that you're choosing to do. And there is no like pedestaling something or someone, or even weight loss as being like the ultimate. It's like, you're always going to be someone who values health. Like, if you've continued to be in these programs, you obviously highly value health, but your experience while you're going through that feels like hell. Because why? Because you're in this like pass fail mentality, and hard on yourself, not nice to yourself. And it's like, that's what we need to work on, that, so that for the future, your experience is just amazing no matter what.
Yeah,
which is awesome. Sure. It's like the foundation to like all the things.
Yeah, for sure. And I think too, you have, I guess I just look at things a little differently, I guess, than most people do. Like and through this program, obviously I've been learning so much about myself, which has been insane in 8 weeks. Like, I have never learned so much about myself in my entire life as I have in the last 8 weeks, like literally. And and it's like, I know I have told you before that like I grew up in a big family. My mom's family is big. She's one of 8. So I have like 17 first cousins. Like, we're really close. We all get together on holidays and all that stuff. And I had a really great like childhood and life up till now. I mean, there's always bumps in the road and things that happen. And obviously, it's never like a smooth thing, but really I've had a great life. And so it never dawned on me that things that happened to me or happened within me when I was younger, how much they affect me now as an adult, until I found this program. And so I have to say that this program is so much more than a weight loss program. It is beyond that. In fact, I know we have talked about this as well. I literally hardly have worked on anything weight loss related since I've been doing this, but everything that I have been working on has related to my weight loss.
Yeah. So if you could say more on, how you haven't been focusing on food, body, and weight, but you've been working
Yeah.
on yourself, but that's
Yeah.
directly related over to
Yes.
your food freedom.
Yeah. So what I was saying basically was that, even though everything that I've been working on hasn't directly been related to the weight loss, it indirectly it was, and I never realized how much all of these things were affecting me in my life as an adult with my
Yes.
weight gain and my weight loss.
Yeah.
It's been
100%.
insanely amazing, like the stuff that's been coming up and be coming out. And I think that, not like, I had no idea coming into this that was what it was going to do to me, or for me, I should say. But I have to say, like, I am more excited about the non-weight loss related things that are happening and that I'm getting through, and that it is truly transforming me. Like, in these 8 weeks, I have had multiple people in my life say, what is going on with you? Because you're so different, and what's happening? And like, they are noticing for sure. And it's in a positive, really good way. And so, yeah, it's kind of mind blowing. And I feel like, oh my gosh, like, where else is this gonna go? But I want to, it's like, I feel like, because I didn't realize the things that came up so far were there, I guess. I'm kind of like, now I'm like really like being a scientist, or I'm like, all right, what else is in there? What else is in that brain? What else am I going to get out? Like, let's do it. It's like, I want to hit every little nook and cranny in there and get it all,
Yep. It's like the new thing becomes like, instead of food being the forefront, it's just like, wow, when I become aware of these parts of myself that I wasn't aware of before. Right. And I can relate, and I'm sure a lot of people can too, of like, yeah, my life was actually pretty good growing up, like there wasn't, some people have huge things, which we definitely see that in our program as well. And some people, it's kind of like, wasn't so bad, like life is pretty good.
Yeah.
And, still when we have this mental obsession or fixation on food and weight loss and body stuff, it's like, there's always going to be a source of where that's coming from. And then once you find that source, I was just talking about this in my interview with Bridget Sobis, then it's like, it's so exciting because the emotions leave, right? We think that the emotions are there because we ate a piece of cake last night, but then reality, it's like the emotions are there because, I made a mistake when I was 12 and my parents got mad at me and it never got resolved. And I never learned how to be loving and compassionate to myself when I make a mistake. Right. And so then everybody's brains goes into like, let's fix it by doing a diet, which is why the weight loss industry is a $6 billion industry. Right. When in reality, it's like that is putting a band-aid on why this continues to be like a really challenging scenario for you in your life.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, it's funny because I don't really think about food hardly at all anymore. Like, I used to be so food obsessed because making my plans and stuff, which wasn't a bad thing, the planning and stuff like that. I never minded that. I thought it was pretty brilliant in the way that they do it in the other program I was in. But now I think I didn't realize how obsessed I was with it. You know what I mean? It's like I would make a plan for the day, which was perfectly fine. I would do lunch or breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks, and I would put it all on my plans. And what would happen is, if it was on my plan, I felt like, oh, well, I can eat it. But it wasn't meant to be that way. It was meant to be, put this on what you want to eat for the day, fine. But then you're only eating when you're hungry, or and only eating till you're satisfied, which is what I do now. Anyway, that's one of the big things I got out of that program. But if it was on my plan, then I felt like, oh, well, I can still have it, even though I wasn't hungry,
Yes.
And so that was kind of self-sabotaging in a way, where now I don't make a plan, but when I sit down to eat, I'm kind of conscious of, all right, yeah, I am really hungry. And then I only eat till I'm satisfied. I don't eat till I'm full. I don't eat till I'm over full or stuff. I just eat till I'm satisfied. And then wait a couple hours. Maybe I'll want a snack. Maybe I won't. I don't know. And the
Yes.
really nice thing, the transition from the last program I was into this program is I could eat anything I wanted on the last program as well. There was no restrictions. There was no, you can't have this, you can't have that, you can't have this, nothing like that. It was, you can eat whatever you want. You're allowed to eat whatever you want. It's just a matter of only eating till you're, when you're hungry, and only eating till you're satisfied. And they did give me really good tools for that. So that is one of the big things that really helped me. But now that I'm not thinking about food at all anymore, really, and not really obsessing about it, it's been actually easier. But I think I needed to have that foundation of that program in order to get to where I am in this program for that part of it. So it was amazing to me that I think it was after like the third week, we had a phone call, and I said to you, I don't even think about food anymore. And you were like, oh my God, that's amazing. And I was just like, yeah, it didn't even dawn on me until that phone call. And I was like, I don't really even think about it. And for my whole life, obviously, it's been like food obsessive. So to get to the point where I'm at now with that is amazing. And so I feel like that is why going through and getting through all of the things that have been coming up for me that's not food related has really made me realize how much digging deep into yourself and getting through the things that you may not even realize you have held on to in your life is like huge. And it really has, for me, the biggest thing that so far that has out of this for me is that I am really learning who my authentic self is, because I lost that girl a long, long time ago and I didn't realize it. And there were so many different points throughout the program that I realized, oh my God, like that's the girl, that's who I'm supposed to be. That's who I've always wanted to be, And I know we have talked about this because I have a younger brother he's 2 years younger than me. And he is now, like I said, I come from a big family. So my family is very loud and very, like when you're in it, it's like you're in it, right? And so I've always told people that I am one of the quietest ones in my family. And they always laugh at me if they've not met my family, because they're like, yeah, right, okay. And I'm like, no, really, I am. I always put myself in that box. And my brother is one of, like all my cousins, my brother is probably one of the loudest. He's the one that he walks into a room and he is there. Like he takes up the room, he takes up the space, and it's fantastic. Like I have always admired that about him. Like I'm like, oh, wish I could be a little more like him. But going through this process, I realized that because he was that way, I felt like I couldn't be that way. I felt like I wasn't allowed to be that way because he was already that way. Like he took on that role. But he is the one, like, he doesn't care. Like he walks into a room and he's like, either you like me or you don't, that's fine. He's not mean or nasty about it. He's cool with it though. He's just like, it's okay if you don't like me, then, move on or whatever, that's just the way he is. And I'm always like, and I would find that throughout my life. There are times in my life that I was that girl. I was just like him, but it was very few and far between. And after the night was over, I'd be like, why can't I be that girl all the time? And then now going through this, I realized I was putting myself in this box. Nobody else was putting me there. I had done this. Nobody said, Stacy, this is who you have to be. You need to be the wallflower. You need to step back because your brother needs the spotlight. And it's not like he's asking for the spotlight. It's just who he is, And so now when I go into social situations, I am a totally different person. Over these 8 weeks, I have now decided that, I'm just going to be who I am, and people are going to love me. And that's just how it's going to be. And so now I just bring this energy to it. And that's why I've had people that I know have been saying to me, wow, what's different? What have you done? Like, what's going on with you?
Oh my God, it's so amazing and so brave to step out of like an old identity and just make a decision. Like, I'm going to be myself and everyone's going to love me is amazing. And I think what you're really pointing to is like full blown self-expression, because the truth is like when we're not, and it's usually a sibling comes along and then we make some kind of unconscious decision that there's no place for me here, or I don't belong here, or whatever is happening. And then our personality kind of gets squashed. And the way that relates to food is like, then you're not actually free to be yourself in all situations. So it's like, where's the alcohol? Where's the food? Right. Instead of like, here I am, let's be with people, let's have a fun time. Right. And then you go home and you feel dissatisfied, and maybe you stop at Burger King on the way home because you didn't get to eat all the things you wanted to eat. Right. And then you're sad again, alone at home, right? Back in your own life again. And it's like not conducive to health, happiness, life satisfaction, none of those things. So what an amazing, like, where do you think you get that courage from to just like make a shift like that? Like, where is it coming from?
Well, it's hard to say.
Yeah.
But I think it's really like more like realizing like I guess I don't know if I'd say where it's coming from. I think it's more like realizing that it's just always been inside of me, but I've just pushed it down so much, and that it was just like singing. And now I'm like, as I'm peeling back the layers, because I keep every week, I'm the question person. Like I will always either ask the question, or if something's happening or I have a thought, I will bring it to the group and say, hey, this is what I'm dealing with this week, and 3/4 of the time it is non-food related, but I think really the courage for me comes from my brother. Like now I really watch him. Now I'm like, yeah, like, right. And the great thing is I got to have a little heart to heart with him a few weeks back. And to tell him, look, this, I kind of gave him the backstory of what had happened with me that week. And I said, I just wanted to thank you because you're the reason that I'm now, learning and being more my authentic self. I said, and I want you to know that I admire that about you. And I've admired that about you like our whole lives, and it was just great. So we hugged it out. It was like, and we don't always have those kind of moments as siblings, but deep down, like my brother, like he is fantastic and he would literally do anything for me and vice versa. And we both know it, we just don't always express it, but we're both very well aware of how we feel about each other. And it was just really nice. It was just a really nice for me to be able to tell him that was such a release for me too, so it was actually pretty cool. So yeah, it's really me watching him, and when because we see each other a lot, like we hang out a lot, we have a lot of the same friends, and so it's just really neat for me because I'm like, oh yeah, okay, that's easy, yeah, I can do that too, or I can be that way, or I can, it's kind of weird to think that like, oh, like I'm watching him, but it's just like oh yeah.
Yeah, and it's so beautiful what you're saying, like sharing that intimacy, and like saying these things, like people live their lives so very much someday, one day, and like, oh, there's lots of assumptions of like, oh yeah, we love each other, or oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. But to actually say some of those things can completely transform, again, your energy of being, like you said, you felt like something positive after that happened. And again, it's like, then we're in this like different vibration altogether of like connection, right? I talk all the time about how the opposite of addiction is connection. And it's like the food is the last thing anybody is thinking about when we're actually like connected, both with ourselves, with our bodies, with our feelings, right? Our emotions, everything, our people that are outside of us, our workplaces, like everything. And it's just like, food is just like how to continue connecting. Keep the body alive.
Yeah. And I think,
and I just also, if I could for a second, like as you were painting your picture, I was kind of like thinking about my, path too. And I remember that when I was following the diet plan very strictly during that part of my path, that there would be hard times that I'd go through, and I started kind of like looking into other food things or listening to other things, maybe finding a podcast about like a different story on, say, like intuitive eating, right? Or on, something else. And, I would maybe try it for a day or two, and then I would get very emotionally scared about it because it was like, oh my God, like without that structured plan, like this is pain, scary, painful. I can't do, you know what I mean? And then I would go right back to it. Right. And then but then it got to this place. And for anyone listening, where it was like, it started getting very, very rocky, like my day-to-day life and my stress level about food, body, and weight became over the top, to the point where it was like, I had to have a very honest conversation with myself, because so often people will stay stuck in that space and like literally come down on themselves and be like, what is wrong with me? I used to be able to do that perfectly. I have to be able to find the ways to get back on track. And sometimes there are, like sometimes by using tools of the program, or you can get support or whatever, like you can get quote unquote back on track and everything's fine. And like, that's fine. But when you get to a place when it's like exhausting, and like you've tried all of the things that you normally do to get back on track and it ain't happening anymore, right? That's what the invitation and what I did for myself was like, I had to have an honest conversation with myself of being like, maybe I've grown out of this. Like maybe, and for me, it was that belief system. I no longer was buying into the belief that I was a food addict, right? I like went to this like healer in Bali, and I actually asked him, and he was like known as a thing, and he never met me one time or whatever. And he did all this, stuff around my body and all this types of stuff. And he was like, you have come here to help people find their passions. Like, you must keep doing this. Like, this is what you've come here to do, like, whatever. And it was just like, everything he said was like nail on the head. So then I asked him, I was like, what about the food addiction? Like, what about, and he was like, and he like kind of looks at me like this. He's like, no addiction, all in here. Like, no, like no, you don't have that. Right. So it was like these different things coming onto my path that were starting to like break down this belief system that was supporting me for a certain amount of time, like the same way that any diet plan could be supporting anyone listening and did for you, Stacey, for an amount of time. But when things start getting crumbly and rotten, instead of going into what's wrong with me and I'm a failure at life and woe is me in my life, it's like, maybe this is a good thing, right? Like maybe some of those beliefs that you had back when you started that program in the past are now no longer resonating, right? Or you're past it or you're beyond it. And like we said, you've evolved into a space where you want to step into your full blown self-expression. You want to be the best version of yourself. You want to be the type of woman who can go to a party and eat anything she wants and not think twice about it. You want to be someone who people want to be around. You want to not think about food 24/7. You're okay with not being super skinny if it means you're not having to obsess about this stuff anymore, right? Then it's like, now you just got to pivot. Right. It's like, so now we got to find the program that's in alignment with you getting your neural pathways in that direction so that you can have peace and happiness. Right. Because it's just like anything that whenever you do what you say you're going to do and you're in alignment with what your soul and your mind is calling you to do today, you have happiness. Right. Regardless of what the scale says, it's like, you just need to know what you care about at this time in your life and focus on that, and happiness will come even if the scale isn't, what you think that it should be saying. So, and like trusting those signs, and just like getting curious and taking the actions and finding out. So one thing I will say about the intuitive eating things that I like dabbled with or tried that like failed, I needed the emotional mastery piece. Right? Like I needed to be able to like feel the scary fears that was happening underneath the surface of like, oh my God, I ate a piece of cake and now I can feel how the sugar is like affecting my brain. And I feel like it's going to set off this entire thing going in my body and cause this like drug-like effect. And I'm never going to be able to control myself again. Like I needed help with those types of things, which is why we start with the emotional mastery first, then get into learning how to listen and trust your body a little bit more, be more mindful, right? And then going into like making it a permanent thing for your life where you never have to diet again. So just want to share that journey. I was inspired by what you were saying, and just like, I'm just amazed by the path that we're on, but without taking action, without asking for help, like I always say in the podcast, without saying like, if things ain't working on this path, maybe it's time for you to move over onto another one. Mm-hmm. Like ain't no shame in that. It can be smart. And like, maybe you're going to prevent yourself from gaining so much more weight by not making a choice to make a move than, to be stuck in this space, mad at yourself for whatever you're doing over there. So
Yeah, for sure.
So, and yeah. And so I know you're a big like journaler, and I'm really inspired by your like relationship that you've created with yourself. I feel like is like
Mhm.
the biggest thing. Do you mind sharing like whether it was that or something else that you found to be the most transformational part of your journey?
Well, so I've been journaling for probably a year and a half now, every day. And I will say that journaling has been pivotal in my journey for sure. Um, it's funny, I've gotten some friends into doing it as well. And they're always like, God, you're journaling like, because we share our journals. And so I read theirs, they read mine, but it's my really good friends, you know. I
And
know
one
I
thing
share
that I'm
my,
really curious that I actually haven't asked about the journaling, like what when you are journaling every day, and this
Mhm.
girl at least 2 pages a day, right? Maybe more,
Yeah, it depends. Yeah, sometimes it's more.
sometimes 4. Like
Yeah.
when you're doing it, what is the experience that you're having as you're doing it?
Well, I think I go into it like I don't so whatever I do a lot of journal prompts, but sometimes I don't. I do freeform journal sometimes depending upon what's happening in my life. But um I think, with the journal prompts, I think before I actually start to journal, I kind of um not pray, but like really ruminate over the question, and kind of like center myself for it, I guess. And then I do also kind of say a little prayer, I guess, before I do it. That's just kind of like give me the words, or, let the words flow, I guess is kind of what I go with.
Mm-hmm.
Because I actually did do this one journal thing I did was you wrote a letter to the higher self, whoever, whatever you believe. I believe in God, so I wrote it to God, but it could be the universe, it could be whatever your path is, it leads you to, or whatever your belief in. And so you wrote the letter, and then at the end of the letter you asked God, or whomever, the universe, to give you the words, like to bring the words to you, to free flow. And then you
Mm-hmm.
said thank you and wrote your name, and then you wrote a letter from the universe, God, whomever, to yourself. Well, I have never, that was one experience where the words just like came right out of me. It was just insane. And it was just like, yeah. So you were writing on whatever it was that you were having like an issue with at the moment, and
Mm-hmm.
then it was like his return or their return words to you. And it was pretty powerful, and it was pretty amazing. Yeah. I also like to do this, like I haven't done this in a while, but this is another one of my journaling things is you write down something that you're having an issue with. Like, for instance, I'm trying to remember, like I had journaled on overeating, like eating too much, for a while. And so I would write down something like, um, I have an issue with eating way too much. Like I'm eating too much when I sit down. I'm not stopping. Why am I not stopping? And
Mm-hmm.
then you would ask you the question, well, why? Because I love the food so much. Well, why? Because it tastes so good. So you keep doing this where you write down and then you ask yourself why again until you get to the point where you've worked through the whole thing and you're like, oh, wow. So that's really the reason. And you get
And what
kind
would
of,
be an example of a reason like all the way at the bottom?
um, I, well, that's a good question.
Yeah, like I
I
was
haven't
thinking
done
for
it in
myself
so
because I
long.
do work like this of being like sometimes it's things like
Yeah.
because I
And I
don't feel
have,
loved enough or because I don't
well,
feel like I matter.
yeah, I think it's, yeah, it does come to those types of things at the end. And
Yeah.
it's kind of like an aha thing. You're like,
Yeah.
wow, okay. Yeah, like I think
Mhm.
I did the one time, it was like because I literally had looked at a picture of myself and I was like appalled by what I looked like. And it did come like that was one of the came down to like, yeah, because I really and it kind of kept going and it was like, yeah, and I just hated the way I looked in that picture. And and then I thought, oh God, that's why I'm overeating this because of that picture. Yeah. So it is crazy stuff like that. But I do find the whys, like doing the five, it's like they call it the five whys. So you do at least five whys. I would go further if I wasn't. satisfied with where I was at yet, but yeah, and it's a pretty interesting process.
That's really powerful. And what I like, and, obviously we talk about reparenting in the program and stuff, is like, you're gonna find, I would think, like that little part of yourself that's saying, because I don't feel like I matter, because I don't feel like I'm good enough. And now we have something to work with, it's like, oh my God, that's what's underneath the surface of the fact that I can't stop eating chips at nighttime. Like, so let's talk about that. Like, let's give the emotional support. Like, a lot of our clients too will use relationships as a way to also numb out in some way, shape, or form, or their minds look it up. And it's like, it's really, again, that same thing of like, we feel like we need that comfort. And it's like, so when we ask ourselves, like, well, what is it about the food? Right. Yeah. And it's just like, oh, well, it gives me that love. It gives me that comfort. And it's like, okay. And like, or that relationship gives me that love, that gives me that comfort. And if I don't have it, then I feel scared that I'm never going to be able to stop eating. So we keep people, we keep habits, we keep all these things in our lives as a way to try to stay safe, which is totally innocent. It's what our unconscious mind is designed to do. But when we can actually step in and gain the resources for how to actually comfort ourselves, soothe ourselves by way of things like journaling or talking to yourself or giving yourself what you need, or putting yourself to bed early the way that you might have needed to as a child, or lots of comfy pillows and blankets, or lighting a candle and making a date night for yourself. Like, all these little things, can really lead into living that better life and getting past the addiction. And like, it's not about the food in the first place. It's not anything. I want people to know. It's like, it's really not about the food. And
I agree with you.
Food,
100%. Agree with
the food
you.
is
now,
the signal that we need to do this work.
And now I need to go get my journals from home and look at them all again and see all my why ones,
what they were, all of your
because
whys.
now I'm like, oh, these are probably things I should probably
that's a great idea. You could go through all of your last 5 whys, and you'll probably discover a lot of ways to care for yourself. Up level your life. Stacey, love that we get to cause a shift for you on your own podcast episode too. And thank you so much for sharing value to our people as well, to give them something. I'm sure everyone's inspired to do that as well. And I don't know if you want to tell people about your woodworking. I just thought of that while we were on here. I don't know if you ship orders or not, but
I do, actually. I do.
Cool.
So I'm a wood burning artist. And I've been doing
I would love to see some of your work sometime.
I'll have to post some, or I'll I don't know, for friends on Facebook, but I can invite you to my group.
Tell people what your group is.
So it's called Sparks of Tinder. That's the name of my business. So you can look it up. It is a private group, so you need to request to join it. But I'm pretty sure that I'm the only one. If you type in Sparks of Tinder wood burning art, that is me.
Oh my God. I just want to be a part of it because you're a spark of Tinder in my mind. So thank you for that.
I never thought about that.
Oh my God, you are. Businesses are always a reflection of who we are, so it's amazing. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate who you are, and you add so much value as you did on this podcast episode everywhere you go. So I'm so excited for your freedom that you have now and where you're headed as you keep your journey going. So congratulations. Thank you for being here. And for anyone who's ready to get your journey started, what's one thing you'd have to say to anybody who's on the fence, Stacey?
I would say this. I decided this year that it was the year of Stacey and that I wasn't saying no to myself anymore. And I think that we all deserve to put ourselves first, because without doing that, you can't be any good to anybody else. So if you're on the fence about this, it is life-changing, literally life-changing. If you put the work in, you are going to get so much out of it. And I just say, I just want to say, do it for yourself. Do it for yourself, for sure.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. Love you guys. Until next time. If you are serious about taking action on your struggle with food, body, and weight, then this is for you. Go ahead and text the word hypnosis to 855-BE-ALIVE. That's 855-232 5483. Immediately after texting that number, you will get access to our free training that will tell you why you can't figure the food, body, and weight thing out, why you can't keep weight off even after you've been successful in the past, and how to actually overcome it, including a mini hypnosis session at the end. Don't miss out. Text the word hypnosis to 855-BE-ALIVE. That's 855-232-5483.